Hello everyone, welcome to Build Succeeded. My name is Lucian and today I'm going to build PONG. PONG was first released in 1972 by Atari. It is one of the earliest arcade video games and is the first commercially successful video game in history. That is why it's the best choice to be the first game I will ever create for this channel. Let's get to it. First, I'm going to define my game resolution, and I'm going to choose a random resolution of 800 by 600. Now, before starting to bring in any element into my game, since we are working in a 2D environment, I should define a 2D point structure, containing two floating point numbers, x and y. This should be able to represent a position on the screen as well as a two-dimensional speed. The main component of the game will be the ball. The ball will have a position, represented by a 2D point, and to represent both a speed and a direction, I will use another 2D point. Since the x and y can also be negative, this should be able to represent the ball speed in any direction. The other main elements in my game are the two paddles. They will also have a position, although the x part of the position will be fixed. They should be able to move only on the y-axis. The original game didn't have any AI, but for a small challenge, I'm going to make the left player be the CPU and I will implement a basic AI for it. Now that we have our elements, let's discuss the engine. Almost any game engine has an infinite loop running. Each passing through the loop represents a frame. Inside the loop there are usually three parts: user input, game logic, and drawing. Like I said, the first part is capturing and processing user input. In my case, for the right side player, I want to use the mouse, so the first thing I need to capture is the mouse Y position on the screen. X, as we discussed, will stay fixed. The other input I want to capture is the mouse left click, because I want that action to reset the game when one of the player loses. The second part is the logic of the game. A few elements need to be taken into consideration here. The first one is the movement of the ball. And this should be easy. We just take the current 2D position and add the 2D speed. Since the speed can also be negative, it should work in any direction. But that is not enough for the ball. We need to detect when the ball hits the top of the screen and the bottom of the screen. In order to do that, we check the Y part of the ball's position. If Y is lower than the radius of the ball, we make sure the Y part of the speed becomes positive. If Y is higher than the screen resolution minus radius, we make sure the Y part of the speed becomes negative. This way, the ball will stay inside the screen, at least vertically. Now let's focus on the left side player. The simplest AI I could make is to make sure the player's Y position follows the ball's Y position. But that also makes the game impossible to win if the paddle will hit the ball dead center every time. So I'm going to make the AI slower. It will follow the ball, but it will also have a maximum speed. So if you hit the ball hard, it will be harder for the AI to follow the ball. The right side player should be simple. We just take the mouse Y position and set the player's Y position to that. We just need to make sure the player does not go outside the screen. The next element to focus on is to check if the ball bounces on one of the paddles. This is similar to the ball hitting the walls, with two main differences. One is that we only bounce it if the ball hits the paddle. So we have to check if the Y position of the ball is inside the paddle extremities. The other difference is that I don't want the ball bounce to be perfect. Depending on where on the paddle the ball hits, I want to modify the speed of the ball. If the ball hits in the center, it will pick up some speed on the x-axis. If the ball will hit towards the end of the paddle, it will slow down on the x-axis but it will change the y-axis speed. I will play with different percentages to see which one feels good for the game. The last element I would like to focus on is if one of the players loses, which is checking if the ball goes outside the screen on the x-axis. In case that happens, I will just block any logic of the game until the player clicks the mouse, which will restart the game. The third part of almost any game engine is drawing on the screen. And there are only 3 elements to draw for this game: the ball and the 2 paddles. Now, it's your choice what language and graphic library you use. My choice was Visual C++ with Direct2D, but you can use OpenGL, Java, even one of the existing game engines. Now let's build this. Development always goes better with a German cloudy wheat beer. Yeah, I know, bad pour. So there it is, a simple PONG game. As you can see, I can move the right paddle with my mouse and the left paddle tries to catch up with the position of the ball. If the ball goes outside the play area, the game is over and I can restart it with a mouse click. Took the liberty of adding the score on the screen so you can see who's winning. Let's take a look at the code. This is the main engine class. The logic method is where all the game logic happens. As you can see, we call ball advance to move the ball. Then we move the left paddle using AI and the right paddle using the received mouse position. We also check if the ball hits the paddle or goes outside of the play area. The elapsed time variable we receive here represents the number of seconds that passed between 2 frames. This will help the game have a consistent speed regardless of the speed of your computer. We use this variable to normalize the speed of the ball and the speed of the AI. In the draw method, we call the draw methods of the game elements, the ball and the 2 paddles. In the ball class, we have methods to move the ball and bounce it off the top and bottom walls, to check if the ball hits the left and right paddles, and change the speed accordingly. Also, to check if it's outside the play area. In the paddle class, we use the move to position method to move the paddle to the given position, and the move AI method that makes the paddle try to follow the ball. In both of these, we make sure the paddles don't go outside the screen. If you want to play around with the code, you will find a link to the GitHub repository in the description of the video. Thank you for watching. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. And if you want to see more games built in the future, make sure to subscribe. See you soon.